The silence in the car was thicker than the Los Angeles smog. Amelia, my wife of 10 years, stared out the window, her perfectly manicured fingernails drumming a restless tattoo against the door panel. We were on our way back from a girls' weekend in Vegas, a trip she'd insisted on taking, claiming she needed time away with her friends. I'd trusted her implicitly. I was an idiot. The seed of suspicion had been planted innocently enough. A lingering perfume, one I didn't recognize, clinging to her clothes when she returned. A newfound obsession with her phone, always clutched in her hand, screen turned away from my view. The vague excuses for missed calls and late nights working. These were tiny cracks in the foundation of our marriage, cracks I initially dismissed as normal wear and tear. Until the night I'd accidentally seen a text flash across her locked screen while she was in the shower, "Miss you already. Can't wait for Vegas." It was like a punch to the gut. My Amelia, the woman I adored, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone. Could she be cheating? The thought felt like a physical violation. The Vegas trip solidified my suspicions. Her stories didn't add up. The details were hazy, the enthusiasm forced. And when she returned, that same unfamiliar perfume clung to her like a second skin. I knew, deep down, that something was terribly wrong. My rational mind told me to confront her, to talk it out. But the hurt, the betrayal, had burrowed deep. I needed proof. Concrete, irrefutable proof. So, I did something I'm not proud of. While Amelia was asleep, I plugged her phone into my laptop and ran a data recovery program. I knew she'd deleted messages, I'd seen her do it furtively, her fingers flying across the screen. But I also knew that deleted data wasn't truly gone, not entirely. The program churned for what felt like an eternity. The whirring of the laptop fan was the soundtrack to my mounting anxiety. Finally, the scan completed. The sheer volume of recovered messages was staggering. My heart pounded in my chest as I scrolled through them. Then I found it. The conversation. The proof. It was with a man named Ethan. The messages were explicit, sickeningly sweet, filled with details of their affair. They'd met months ago, at a conference Amelia had attended. The Vegas trip hadn't been with her friends. It had been with him. The texts painted a vivid picture of the clandestine rendezvous, their stolen moments, their future plans. Plans that didn't include me. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. The world swam around me, the room tilting on its axis. I copied the messages, printed them out, every single one. Then, I waited. The next morning, I confronted her. I didn't yell, didn't scream. I simply placed the stack of papers on the kitchen table, between our half-eaten bowls of cereal. "What's this?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Read it," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. She picked up the papers, her eyes scanning the first few lines. The color drained from her face, her lips forming a silent, "Oh." Then she looked at me, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and, what? Regret. She stammered, "I can explain." "Explain what, Amelia?" "Explain how you looked me in the eyes, day after day, and lied to my face. Explain how you systematically destroyed everything we built together." She started to cry, the tears streaming down her face, ruining her carefully applied makeup. "It just happened," she sobbed. "It meant nothing." "Nothing." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You spent a weekend in Vegas with him, Amelia. You planned a future with him. And you tell me it meant nothing." She collapsed onto the floor, a crumpled heap of designer clothes and broken promises. It was then, amidst her sobs and pleas for forgiveness, that I decided on my revenge. I didn't want to hurt her physically. I wanted to dismantle her world, brick by agonizing brick, the same way she had dismantled mine. I started with Ethan. I found his contact information in her phone and paid him a visit at his office, a sleek, modern building in downtown LA. He was a lawyer, arrogant and self-assured, the kind of man who thought he was untouchable. I walked into his office unannounced, the printed messages clutched in my hand. He looked up, surprised, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice condescending. "I'm Amelia's husband," I said, my voice low and steady. "The man whose life you've been so diligently destroying." His face paled. He started to stammer something about a misunderstanding, but I cut him off. I threw the papers onto his desk, scattering them across his pristine surface. "Read them," I said, my voice laced with venom. "Read them and tell me it was all a misunderstanding." He read the messages, his face contorting with each line. The arrogance melted away, replaced by fear, raw and palpable. I watched as his world crumbled around him. His reputation, his career, his carefully constructed image, all gone. I knew his wife would see those messages. I'd make sure of it. Then I turned my attention back to Amelia. I didn't scream, I didn't rant. I simply packed my bags, took half of our joint savings, and left. I filed for divorce, citing infidelity, and made sure she got served the papers while she was at work, in front of her colleagues. The house, the car, the life we'd built together, I let her keep it all. It was tainted, poisoned by her lies. I didn't want any part of it. I moved out of state, started a new life, a life free from the shadow of her betrayal. It wasn't easy. The pain lingered, a dull ache in my chest. But I knew, with a certainty that surprised even myself, that I would heal. I would move on. I never saw Amelia or Ethan again. I heard through mutual acquaintances that their affair had imploded spectacularly. Ethan's wife had left him, taking their children and half of his assets. Amelia, ostracized by her friends and facing a costly divorce, had lost her job and was struggling to make ends meet. I didn't rejoice in their misfortune. But I didn't feel pity either. They had made the choices, and now they were living with the consequences. As for me, I found solace in the quiet moments, in the simple joys of life. I learned to trust again, slowly, cautiously. And I learned that sometimes, the most satisfying revenge is simply walking away and building a better life for yourself, a life they can only dream of.